the Kawhi Leonard I know. Doing nothing and getting paid for it.
Kendrick Perkins doesn't mince words when it comes to Kawhi Leonard, and this time he's calling out what he sees as flat-out sneaky behavior. Perkins points to the way Kawhi operates in the shadows. Quiet, calculated, and often leaving his teammates, coaches, and even the front office guessing about his next move. Whether it's sitting out games without clarity, dragging out decisions in free agency, or structuring deals that benefit him while offering little accountability, Perkins argues Kawhi has mastered the art of keeping everyone in the dark. To him, that's not leadership, that's manipulation. Perkins' frustration is clear. Stars are supposed to carry teams, not keep them hostage. And when Kawhi moves this way, Perkins says, it doesn't just hurt the Clippers. It undermines the trust that organizations, fans, and even fellow players place in their franchise cornerstone. In Perkins' eyes, Kawhi's sneaky behavior isn't quiet genius. It's selfishness disguised as strategy.
And he's a guy that flies under the radar, that has been doing sneaky stuff, been getting catered to, and just because he's quiet, we don't address him.
Here's what the NBA world really thinks about Kawhi Leonard's $28 million fraud scandal, through the lens of Kendrick Perkins. When it comes to throwing verbal haymakers at NBA superstars, few do it with more passion and conviction than Perkins. The former Boston Celtics and Oklahoma City Thunder center has built a second career at ESPN as one of the network's most outspoken analysts, never backing down from heated debates or controversial takes. So when the Kawhi Leonard scandal broke, many expected Perkins to come out swinging, ready to tear into another superstar accused of gaming the system. Instead, what viewers saw was something completely unexpected. On Get Up on September 7, 2025, Perkins shocked fans and fellow analysts alike by delivering a fiery defense of Leonard. The NBA world is overreacting, he declared. Kawhi is not the villain in this story. The Clippers are the ones who should be held accountable. But Perkins didn't stop there. His defense went beyond this single incident, expanding into a larger argument about how successful players are too often targeted for arrangements that, in his view, have become commonplace in professional sports. Later on First Take, he doubled down, arguing that Leonard wasn't exploiting the system so much as operating within a structure the NBA and its franchises helped create.
Nothing in this world, when you're being successful, and it goes to show you that billionaires cut side deals in whatever they do. Billionaires have under the table shit going on every single day. That's how they get ahead.
This stance represents a remarkable evolution for Perkins, who has not always been Leonard's biggest supporter. Back in 2021, Perkins flat out called Leonard a snake over his controversial exit from the San Antonio Spurs and the ugly injury disputes that surrounded it. More recently, in 2024, Perkins even suggested that Leonard should retire due to his chronic injury issues, a comment that sparked backlash across the NBA community. Yet now, we see a completely different side of him. Rather than zeroing in on Leonard's past choices or lingering health problems, Perkins shifted the focus to the system itself, arguing that this scandal reveals more about ownership and front office maneuvering than about Kawhi personally. His prediction about the investigation's outcome is telling. Leonard, he believes, will face minimal punishment, likely avoiding contract voiding altogether, while the Clippers organization shoulders the heavy burden through massive fines and possible loss of draft picks. Perkins frames Leonard not as the mastermind, but as a beneficiary of an owner-driven strategy to keep a superstar at all costs. What makes his defense even more compelling is the way he acknowledges Leonard's injury-plagued career, while still standing firm on the idea that being compensated at an elite level is justified for a player of his stature. On First Take, Perkins drove the point home passionately, saying,
We have been letting him off the hook for too long, and he's a guy that flies under the radar, that has been doing sneaky stuff, been getting catered to, and just because he's quiet, we don't address him.
If there's anyone in the basketball media landscape who truly understands the intricate dance between players, agents, and executives when it comes to creative compensation, it's Richard Jefferson. The 17-year veteran, who logged time with the Nets, Mavericks, Spurs, and several other franchises, saw firsthand how deals were structured, stretched, and occasionally bent behind closed doors. So when the Kawhi Leonard scandal erupted, Jefferson's perspective carried a weight that casual observers couldn't ignore. Appearing on ESPN's Get Up and later diving deeper on his Road Trippin' podcast, Jefferson's reaction stood apart from many of his media peers. While others rushed to assign blame or paint Leonard as the face of fraud, Jefferson leaned into nuance. On Road Trippin', Jefferson explained that these kinds of arrangements, side investments, sponsorship alignments, and strategic partnerships, aren't new to the NBA. What made this case explosive wasn't the idea itself, but the timing, the paper trail, and the scale of the money involved. In his words, this isn't about Kawhi creating some secret scheme. This is about the NBA finally drawing a line on what has always been a very gray area. Jefferson stressed that players, by nature, will always look for opportunities that maximize both financial and personal leverage, and that it's the league's responsibility, not the athletes, to set clear boundaries.
Who's snitching? The reporter?
The
reporter's job is to snitch. Our job is to keep it quiet, right? Like, Ballmer didn't tell, Kawhi didn't tell, so Pablo's doing what he's supposed to do, and he's doing an absolute great job. Shout him out for this investigation, right?
Jefferson's analysis went beyond just defending Leonard or attacking the reporting. Instead, he provided crucial context that many observers were missing. He explained on the podcast that the NBA has always lived in what he called the gray space between basketball and business. According to Jefferson, players like Leonard aren't creating these opportunities out of thin air. Teams, owners, and corporate partners often dangle them as part of the recruitment and retention process. Look, every free agency pitch has two parts, Jefferson said. There's the contract the league approves, and then there's the everything else. The houses, the connections, the business opportunities, the little side deals that make a guy feel like he's not just signing with a team, he's joining a network. What makes this situation different, Jefferson argued, is that the scale was too blatant and too sloppy. The combination of Ballmer's massive investment, the Clippers' sponsorship deals, and Leonard's own business filings all happening in the same window created a trail that couldn't be ignored. Jefferson wasn't excusing it, but he was emphasizing that it wasn't unprecedented, just unusually transparent. If people think Kawhi Leonard is the first star to benefit from creative team partnerships, they're lying to themselves. The difference is this one got exposed.
I would do it in a heartbeat if I was Kawhi Leonard. What? I would do it in a heartbeat.
This candid admission revealed the mindset that many players likely share. When presented with additional compensation opportunities, especially those that appear legitimate on the surface, few would turn them down. But Jefferson's most valuable contribution to the discourse came through his historical perspective. He detailed how such arrangements are normalized in professional sports, pointing back to instances across multiple decades where stars were given preferential treatment under the guise of business partnerships. Jefferson reminded listeners of how Magic Johnson was once promised ownership stakes in the Lakers, how Michael Jordan's post-retirement business empire was fueled by deep ties to Bulls ownership and Nike, and how LeBron James has consistently leveraged corporate partnerships tied to team markets. None of these examples were technically violations, Jefferson explained, but they all highlighted the blurred line between endorsement, compensation, and recruitment. This isn't new, Jefferson said flatly. The only new part is that there's a paper trail, fraud charges, and a $50 million check with an owner's name on it. That's why this blew up. By placing Leonard's scandal in the larger framework of NBA history, Jefferson shifted the conversation away from individual blame and toward a systemic truth. Star players and their teams have always operated in the gray zone. Leonard may have gotten caught in the ugliest version of it, but he was far from the first to benefit from an ecosystem that quietly rewards the elite.
When you talk about players, they always like, oh, we'll give you a front office position, we're gonna give you this, and we'll make you an ambassador, right? Like this is what a lot of these players are offered, especially later in their career.
Teague's prediction for the investigation's outcome reveals his skepticism about the NBA's willingness or ability to impose truly severe penalties. His commentary suggested that while the optics are terrible, the league's response might be more measured than some expect, stating, look, they might hit the Clippers with a fine, maybe dock a pick or two, but I don't see them dropping the hammer the way people think. The NBA doesn't want one of its biggest stars sitting out over paperwork. What makes Teague's take resonate is his focus on the league's priorities. He argued that the NBA has too much invested in maintaining star power and avoiding prolonged scandals to truly devastate the Clippers organization. At the same time, Teague didn't let Leonard completely off the hook. He called Leonard's passive approach to endorsements weird, and suggested that his unwillingness to actively engage with brands made the $28 million deal appear even more suspicious. But for Teague, the bigger story wasn't Kawhi's silence, it was the Clippers' desperation. This feels like the team trying to buy peace of mind, not Kawhi running a hustle, he noted. By grounding his analysis in both skepticism about league discipline and acknowledgement of Leonard's injury-plagued career, Teague struck a balance that few others did. He framed the scandal as less about one superstar's greed and more about an organization willing to blur lines to keep its cornerstone happy. A risk that, in Teague's eyes, will likely end with embarrassment but not annihilation for the franchise.
On the court, it's Kawhi. Together, weight room and court, Kawhi. Not, I ain't seen nobody like him.
So for all you at home and everybody questions because he's hurt a lot.
That's
but
why he
hear
hurt.
From the source that the man is the heart.
Patrick Beverly. When it comes to defending Kawhi Leonard, few voices carry more weight or authenticity than Patrick Beverly. The former Clippers guard spent several seasons as Leonard's teammate from 2019 to 2023, giving him an intimate behind-the-scenes perspective on Leonard's character, work ethic, and approach to the game that outsiders simply cannot match. Beverly's response to the scandal on his Pat Bev podcast was both passionate and personal. He wasted little time making it clear that, in his eyes, Leonard is not the type of player who schemes for extra money or seeks shortcuts to success. Beverly framed Leonard as someone who is relentlessly private, sometimes to the point of frustrating teammates and media alike, but never dishonest. He argued that Leonard's focus has always been on basketball, family, and recovery from injuries, not backroom financial arrangements. His defense was underscored by anecdotes from their time together with the Clippers, where Beverly described Leonard as the most straightforward dude in the room, a superstar who lets his game and his actions talk instead of his mouth. What makes Beverly's stance particularly powerful is how it blends fierce loyalty with a grounded realism about the NBA business machine. He acknowledged that shady endorsement deals and gray area sponsorships exist across the league, but insisted that Leonard himself likely had little to no knowledge of the fraudulent mechanics behind the tree planting company at the center of the scandal. In Beverly's telling, Leonard was targeted precisely because of his stature as a global superstar who prefers to stay out of the limelight, making him an easy face for a company seeking legitimacy. Beverly's prediction for the fallout echoed this line of thought. He argued that the investigation would expose problems with the Clippers front office and their handling of outside partnerships, but that Leonard himself would ultimately be cleared of intentional wrongdoing. More importantly, he warned against using the scandal as a weapon to discredit Leonard's legacy, emphasizing that nothing about this changes what he's done on the court or who he is as a man. This defense resonates not just because of Beverly's credibility as a former teammate, but because of his reputation as one of the NBA's most brutally honest voices. If Beverly believed Leonard was guilty of knowingly participating in fraudulent schemes, he would likely say so without hesitation. His willingness to plant his flag firmly on Leonard's side underscores just how strongly he believes the two-time Finals MVP is being unfairly painted by association.
But that's why he be hurt. That's what people don't understand. That's why the motherfucker be hurt. Okay, man, you gotta relax. Nah.